one thing you said to me that kind of blew me away. You said you guys that our band played a few things that Brubeck never played live.
Right, yeah. A lot of tunes were just session tunes. Take 5 was never supposed to be played after the session. So, Take 5 is just one piece out of 7 tracks.
Right.
And it wasn't the dominant piece. In terms of the...
What was the dominant piece?
Because the album, Columbia hated the whole idea of the album, right? Because you were dealing with all of the things that violated Columbia's rules. You didn't have a cover, right? Now this might not cover it, but meaning that an album cover, it was art, all right? It's the first time that it had ever been used. Every tune was in a different time signature. All of these violated Columbia. There wasn't a Broadway cover because at this point, Columbia owned the rights to all of the Broadway shows. And who was A&R man? Mitch Miller. So you had to do jazz versions of Broadway tunes because Columbia owned the publishing.
Well, Mitch Miller wasn't exactly a swing guy.
No, but he was a great musician. But he was headed by A&R. All right, that's where you have to deal with that. So Take 5 was never meant to be anything more than a session tune that done once and forgotten. Dave wanted each musician to write a tune in a different time signature for this experimental album. All right, so this experimental album have these 7 tunes. Well, Take 5 is just one of 7. I mean, when you look at complexity, you can't get any more complex than Blue Rondo.
Absolutely not.
All right, or 3 to Get Ready. When you're alternating 2 bars of 3 with 2 bars of 4.
Very tough to improvise.
Okay,
yeah.
So you've got all of this as an experimental album. So Columbia just said, okay, Dave, you got it out of your system. Now, here's your next album, which was Gone with the Wind, right? The album broke while the quartet was in Europe, and it broke in Cleveland. Then Chicago. Then it just went around the world.
Well, I remember hearing it on our... In fact, my friend and I, we just grew up at Blue Brubeck, and we had a sack of dimes and quarters. And our hangout at our high school, the jukebox had Take 5 on it. And so we would play it like 100 times until people started to strangle us.
Yeah,
and that's you don't hear that on any other jukebox around the city at the time.
No,
but it was like in every theme for transitions on TV shows.
Oh yeah, it was used for everything. So, but that was the story, which was never meant to be a hit. It was meant to be an experimental album.
Well, I remember reading that Joe Morello came up with the rhythm.
Well, that rhythm's okay. when it was determined that the quartet had failed, Dave said, "Well, Paul, haven't you written anything?" And Paul said, "Well, I wrote these 2 pieces, but they're no good." And Dave said, "Let me hear it." So the first is that's tune 1. Second tune is so Dave said, "Look, if we take this, marry it to this, and then come back to the A version, you've got a tune. And why don't we start it using Joe Morello's warm-up vamp, which was that's how Joe warmed up backstage."